Okay, hello, my name is Alfredo Castellon, and as Odalis mentioned about the human capacity for linguistic is something unique. And why unique? Actually, we can think about why if animals can understand, and as Odalis was saying, animals can maybe understand, but they are actually conditioned in order to understand because they get a pattern and they get used to it actually, as Ivan Pavlov used to do with a dog. I don't know if you had already heard about the story of the psychology of the condition, actually the conditional psychology, the branch of psychology. In this case, Ivan Pavlov used to ring a bell so the dog could come to eat actually, and he used to feed the dog but when he used to ring the bell. So in that case, whenever the dog used to ring the bell, when the dog used to hear the bell, the dog should come, and there was actually a plate where the dog could eat its food actually. So that's why animals understand in that way. They get conditioned, they get used to it. But what about humans? Are we conditioned as well? That's a very good question. So we can say that we are conditioned in a very varied way, because we actually learn for example, when we start learning a language. In this case, we start listening to patterns in a language, and we start repeating them. We start looking at rules of grammar, and we get conditioned to it. Whenever we start practicing the rules and maybe patterns that a language can have, we get used to it. So whenever we're going to put into practice our knowledge, we say, oh, this is this way. So we are actually conditioned in a certain way. But what about this linguistic stuff? Are we conditioned in that way? Yes, we are. But this is unique because it has variety. Animals cannot have the same linguistic as we have, because Odalis mentioned as well that they may understand a little bit, and as I mentioned before, they are conditioned. That is correct. That is a good idea. But what about the studies? What about the scientific studies? For centuries, philosophers have been divided on the nature of language. Those in the rational empiricist tradition, Hobbes, Locke, Condillac, and Derrida assert of the language is a tool that human beings develop to encode and communicate information. Well, Charles Taylor explains that this view neglects the crucial role language plays in shaping the very human experience. The human capacity is not something we innately possess. That is something we have to keep in mind actually. We don't innately possess the human linguistic, but we first learn a language from others. We get conditioned, as I was explaining before. The idea that this actually supports the idea that I explained already. And we learn from others and inducted into the shared practice of the speech. Our individual selves emerge out of the conversation. So it means that we actually learn. In this case, what is the concept that could play a big role in this case? Adaptation. I remember that in one of these classes, Mr. Oliva was mentioning about adaptation, about the evolution, and I do support that idea, because I think that we evolve, that we get adapted to an environment. For example, if you migrate to another country, for example, if I will go to let's say Spain, but in that case it wouldn't change the language. But what about if I go to the US? I will get involved. Since I already speak English, let's say that I already speak English, but I will get involved in their cultural environment because I have to adapt to the rules, to the customs, to what they actually do, to what they usually use to practice actually. So in that case, I will get involved and I will evolve actually, because I will become another version of myself. I will get adapted to that environment, and that is something that animals do as well. But in this case, Charles Taylor expands the thinking of the German Romantics and into a theory of linguistic holism. It means that of everything, language is intellectual, but it also is enacted in artistic portrayals, gestures, tone of voice, metaphors, and the shift of emphasis and attitude that accompany speech. That is something very unique in human language. And human language recognizes no boundary between mind and body. That's why it is unique. In eliminating the full capacity of the language, Charles Taylor sheds light on the very question of what is to be the human being. So, I consider, as Odalis was mentioning as well, that our linguistic is unique, and we can all see that this is very unique, and animals cannot understand literally what we are saying. They are just conditioned. If you have any questions, please ask, guys.